All right, so my first question for you today, Paul, is where did you do your work terms?
So I was lucky enough to do all three of my work terms at a company called Clear Picture Corporation here in Halifax. They were pretty much a startup. The whole purpose of Clear Picture was to do surveys for large companies, Fortune 500s, Fortune 100s, that type of thing, to gauge engagement and satisfaction of their employees.
Where do you currently work now, and what do you do for a living?
My primary employment is with Discover Halifax. I'm a sales director for international group sales, which means I'm responsible for bringing international groups, conferences, and events from around the world to Halifax.
What's something you learned in the workplace that you were not able to learn in the classroom?
The one thing that I really took away back in the early 2000s was how dynamic the workplace is. It's great to understand the theory and how things play out on a piece of paper or if we're bench testing something.
Right.
But then to see people come into the mix and politics and funding and finance and all these other dynamics come into the mix, all of a sudden you end up with something where no matter what was planned on paper, it's going to be different.
Right.
And being able to see that firsthand and understand that there's that X factor is not something that I could learn in a classroom and something I could only learn because of a work term.
How did your 3 co-op terms at Clear Picture Corporation prepare you for your future job search?
More than anything else, it opened my eyes to the fact that there are businesses and opportunities that exist beyond the borders of Halifax and Nova Scotia, especially as a young student. It was a slightly different time back in the early 2000s. If you look at Halifax today, there's so many opportunities here, but there weren't nearly the number of opportunities here back then. So, to really set myself up on the right foot, and in this case, do things that I was interested in, I very much had to look beyond Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
And having that time at Clear Picture where I was working with global companies certainly set me up for that. So when GM came knocking saying that they wanted me to come to Ontario in Oshawa and then move further along to British Columbia, it wasn't as, at least professionally, as daunting as it would have been otherwise. If I continued to do my program, without a co-op, and then went on to do an international business MBA, everything would have been far more theoretical.
Right.
Which is a lot more scary when it actually comes time for the rubber to hit the road. The simple fact is the co-op opened my eyes to this global world that we live in through Clear Picture, and that wouldn't have happened otherwise.
So, just per our discussion, it sounds like you've been able to have the opportunity to work for a lot of different companies. Mm-hmm. How did your co-op provide you with the skills needed to transition to all of these different roles across all of these different companies?
I think what it did more than anything else is it gave me a really solid foundation that allows me to believe that I can do what I set my mind to. Once I left Nova Scotia and took that first job with General Motors, I was a district manager out west. And what was really interesting is they were asking a fresh grad with his shiny new MBA to go and work with these businesses, all of which, generate millions of dollars in gross and net revenue a year. And, without that co-op, number one, would have I gone all the way across the country? Maybe not. But number two, would have I been able to take on the challenge with the belief that I can actually do this?
Yeah.
Having some actual worked and lived experience gave me that confidence to walk in and sit down with a dealer and say to them, hey, I actually feel I can help. Whether I can or not is a whole different story, but I at least had the confidence to be able to walk in and say that. And walk in with a sense of strength that I'm walking into a business and I really believe that I understand what's going on here because I've seen a lot of these things myself already. Whereas if I was just walking in with, hey, I've seen it in the book and now we're going to try it.
Yeah.
It might have gone differently.
Harder to navigate, I'm
Absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. And I'm a firm believer, at least in myself, and knowing who I am, that if I got the belief that I can do it, I'll find a way to make it happen. And I don't know if I would have had that belief without the co-op.
Thank you for your time today.
Of course.
It was a pleasure getting to know you better and getting to interview you. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much, Asia.